Welcome back to the channel coins buyers everyone, and thanks for stopping by the channel today. If you love hidden treasures, everyday pocket change stories, and the idea that a tiny coin can secretly be worth more than most mansions, you're absolutely in the right place. Because in this video we're diving deep into one of the most talked about and mysterious modern Lincoln pennies ever discussed. The 1992 Lincoln 1-cent Liberty coin, a simple copper-colored piece that most people overlook every single day, yet in rare situations and under extraordinary circumstances has been linked by collectors and storytellers to staggering values rumored as high as $74 million, a number that sounds almost impossible when you remember this coin was meant to buy absolutely nothing more than a fraction of a candy decades ago. And today we're going to explore why the 1992 Lincoln penny is so fascinating, how errors, mistakes, mint mark issues, and striking anomalies can separate a normal face value cent from a legendary collectible, and why this particular year continues to ignite imaginations across the coin collecting world. Because when we talk about the 1992 Lincoln cent, we're not just talking about a date stamped on copper, we're talking about the broader story of U.S. minting history, human error, mechanical imperfections, and the rare alignment of circumstances that can turn an ordinary object into a once-in-a-lifetime artifact, starting with the design itself. The familiar Lincoln portrait, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, a design that by 1992 had already been in circulation for over 80 years, making it one of the most recognizable faces in American history. And yet, even with such a long-running design, every single year brings subtle differences, small changes in dies, spacing, mint marks, and metal flow, differences that usually go unnoticed but occasionally become the key to immense value. And the 1992 penny exists right at a crossroads in modern minting history, a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins annually at facilities like Philadelphia and Denver, pushing machinery to its limits to keep up with demand. And when production pressure increases, the chance for errors also increases. And that's where the story begins to get exciting. Because most 1992 Lincoln pennies are common, worth exactly 1 cent, but within that ocean of ordinary coins, collectors believe there are ultra-rare anomalies that transform a basic cent into a mythical treasure, one of the most talked about possibilities being mint mark errors, especially missing or altered mint marks, since in 1992 pennies were struck primarily in Philadelphia without a mint mark and in Denver with a mint mark, and while Philadelphia coins lacking a mint mark are normal. Confusion arises when a coin shows evidence of a removed, weak, or malformed mint mark, which can sometimes point to die damage, die polishing, or even an experimental or transitional strike, and when collectors encounter something unusual like a faint shadow of a doubled mint mark, or an oddly shaped mint mark that doesn't match known standards, it raises immediate questions about authenticity and rarity. But mint marks are only the beginning, because some of the most valuable pennies in history owe their fame to striking errors, such as double dies, where the design appears double due to misalignment during the die creation process. And while famous examples like the 1955 double die penny dominate headlines, collectors are always hunting for later-date double dies that might have slipped through unnoticed, and the idea that a 1992 penny could show dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, or the inscriptions is enough to send experts into careful microscopic examination, because true double dies are rare, unmistakable when genuine, and highly sought after, especially if they come from a year not widely known for such errors. And beyond doubling, there are off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during striking, leaving part of the design missing and an off-center blank area visible, a mistake that instantly transforms a coin from pocket change into a collectible curiosity. And then there are broad strikes, where the collar that normally shapes the coin fails, allowing the metal to spread outward, resulting in a wider, thinner coin with distorted lettering. And while many error coins fetch modest premiums, extreme examples in pristine condition can reach astonishing prices, especially if they are unique or nearly unique. And this is where the narrative around the $74 million valuation comes into play, because such a figure is not about a typical error. It represents the hypothetical upper limit of what could happen if multiple rare factors aligned in a single coin, such as a one-of-a-kind error, a historically significant anomaly. perfect preservation, and intense competition among elite collectors and institutions. And one scenario often discussed in speculative circles is the possibility of a transitional error involving metal composition, because while most 1992 pennies were struck using copper-plated zinc, transitional errors can occur when leftover planchets from previous or experimental compositions are accidentally struck with current dies, and if a 1992 penny were proven to be struck on an incorrect metal planchet, especially one never officially intended for circulation that year, it would instantly elevate the coin into a category beyond ordinary errors, and if that metal were precious, experimental, or tied to an undocumented minting test, the value could skyrocket into territory usually reserved for the most legendary coins in existence, and collectors would scrutinize the coin's weight, magnetic properties, edge, and surface under advanced testing to verify such a claim, and another layer of intrigue surrounds die varieties, small differences in lettering, spacing, and design details that can identify specific dies used during production, and sometimes a die is damaged or modified in a way that creates a unique signature, such as cracks, chips, or cuds, where chunks of the die break away, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin, and while minor die cracks are common, massive or dramatic cuds that alter the appearance of the coin significantly can become famous, especially if only a handful of coins were struck before the die was retired, and if such a dramatic die error occurred in 1992 and went unnoticed for years, rediscovered only recently, it could become the centerpiece of intense bidding wars. And then there are mule errors, among the rarest of all, where a coin is struck using mismatched dies, such as a Lincoln cent obverse paired with an incorrect reverse design. Something that should never happen under normal minting procedures. And while mules are incredibly rare, their existence proves that even the most controlled systems are vulnerable to human or mechanical oversight, and the mere suggestion that a 1992 Lincoln penny mule could exist is enough to fuel speculation, because if verified, such a coin would be historically important, visually striking, and virtually priceless. And when collectors talk about values reaching tens of millions, they're often thinking about this level of rarity, a coin that is not only rare but fundamentally challenges what we know about minting practices, and condition also plays a massive role, because even the rarest error loses value if it's heavily worn, scratched, or damaged after leaving the mint, whereas a coin preserved in mint state, with original luster, sharp details, and no post-mint damage, becomes exponentially more desirable, and in the case of a hypothetical ultra-rare 1992 era penny, perfect preservation would be essential to justify astronomical valuations, and provenance adds another dimension, because a coin with a well-documented history, discovered in an unusual context, authenticated by top grading services, and exhibited in major collections or museums gains credibility and allure, and as stories spread, sometimes through online forums, auctions, or viral videos, public interest can explode, creating a feedback loop where fascination drives demand, demand drives price, and price drives even more fascination, and this is how legends are born in the numismatic world, where a simple cent becomes a symbol of possibility, a reminder that value is not inherent but created through rarity, story, and human desire, and the idea that a 1992 Lincoln penny could be worth $74 million captures imaginations not because it's common or guaranteed, but because it represents the extreme edge of what could be possible if the perfect storm of error, uniqueness, condition, and collector passion were to occur, and that's why people still check their change, still examine old jars of pennies, still pull out magnifying glasses and digital scales, because even though the odds are incredibly small, the potential reward is life-changing, and beyond money, there's the thrill of discovery, the sense of touching history, of holding something that slipped through the cracks of a massive industrial process and survived unnoticed for decades. And whether or not such a record-breaking 1992 penny ever surfaces, the discussion itself keeps the hobby alive, educating new collectors about errors, mint marks, and the importance of careful observation, and it reminds us that even in a world dominated by digital transactions, physical objects still hold stories, mysteries, and the power to surprise us. So the next time you see a 1992 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it too quickly, because while most are worth exactly 1 cent, The most fascinating and unbelievable stories in modern coin collecting, a story that turns an ordinary 1-cent coin into a jaw-dropping treasure worth up to $53 million. Yes, you've heard that right. Today we are talking about the legendary 1982 Lincoln 1-cent Liberty penny, a coin that most people have seen, spent, ignored, or tossed into jars without a second thought. Yet hidden among these everyday pennies are rare error varieties, mint mistakes, metal composition anomalies, and mint mark irregularities that have made certain examples of this coin so valuable that they rival fine art, luxury mansions, and even private jets in worth. And as we begin this journey, let me invite you to imagine holding a single penny in your hand, a coin that officially represents just 1 cent, yet quietly carries a potential value so extreme that it could change generations of wealth. Because the year 1982 stands as one of the most chaotic, transitional, and mistake-filled years in the entire history of United States coinage, and that chaos is exactly what makes this penny one of the most hunted, examined, and obsessed over coins in the world of numismatics. The Lincoln cent had already been a symbol of American history since 1909, honoring Abraham Lincoln, but by 1982 the United States Mint was facing serious economic pressure. Copper prices were soaring, production costs were climbing, and the government needed a solution fast. So what happened next was unprecedented. The Mint decided to change the metal composition of the penny in the middle of the year, shifting from the traditional 95% copper alloy to a new zinc-based planchet coated with a thin layer of copper, and instead of making this change cleanly and neatly, the Mint rolled out multiple varieties simultaneously, creating a perfect storm of confusion, errors, and accidental rarities. In fact, 1982 is the only year in U.S. history where the Lincoln cent was struck in both large date and small date designs, in both copper and zinc compositions, and with multiple mint mark variations, and that alone creates at least 7 major collectible varieties before we even begin talking about errors, mistakes, and mint mark anomalies. Now add human error, worn dies, wrong planchets, transitional strikes, and quality control breakdowns, and you have a year that numismatists describe as a gold mine disguised as pocket change, one of the most valuable possibilities tied to the 1982 penny comes from the extremely rare transitional error where a penny was struck on the wrong metal planchet, specifically a copper planchet when it should have been zinc, or vice versa, and among these the most legendary is the 1982 small date penny struck on a copper planchet. This variety is so rare that only a handful of authenticated examples are believed to exist. And because the small date design was intended to be struck only on zinc planchets, any confirmed copper example represents a monumental mint error, the kind of error that collectors dream about and auction houses whisper about behind closed doors. These coins are heavier than zinc cents, weighing approximately 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams. And that difference in weight is one of the first clues that something extraordinary might be hiding in plain sight. And when one of these coins surfaces in pristine condition with full mint luster and minimal wear, its value skyrockets into the millions, with speculative valuations reaching as high as $53 million when factoring in rarity, condition, historical significance, and collector demand. Because the coin represents not just a mistake but a frozen moment of transition in American monetary history. Another category that adds explosive value to the 1982 Lincoln cent is mint mark errors, especially missing mint marks, repunched mint marks, or incorrectly placed mint marks. During 1982, pennies were struck primarily at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia coins traditionally lacking a mint mark and Denver coins carrying the D. However, chaos in production led to coins that display anomalies such as weak or filled mint marks, doubled mint marks, or even coins that appear to have no mint mark at all despite originating from Denver dies. These errors occur due to grease-filled dies, die fatigue, or improper punching. And while many minor mint mark errors add modest value, extreme and dramatic examples can command enormous premiums, especially when combined with other errors such as doubled dies or off-metal strikes. Speaking of doubled dies, the 1982 Lincoln penny also includes rare doubled die obverse and reverse varieties where design elements such as Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust" appear doubled or distorted due to misalignment during the die creation process. These are not post-mint damages or machine doubling but true doubled dies created during the hubbing process, and authentic double die errors are among the most respected and valuable categories in coin collecting. When these doubled dies appear on already rare compositions like copper small date cents, their value increases exponentially, and collectors will pay staggering amounts for high-grade examples with strong visible doubling. Then there are off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and partial collar errors that occurred during the rushed production of 1982 cents, as the mint worked overtime to produce massive quantities of pennies under changing specifications. Machines were adjusted frequently, dies were swapped rapidly, and quality control slipped, leading to coins that were struck off-center leaving part of the design missing, or coins that expanded beyond their normal diameter due to collar failures, while many off-center coins are collectible at modest levels. Extreme examples showing full dates and mint marks with dramatic misalignment can reach astonishing prices, especially when paired with the already significant 1982 transition narrative. Another factor that pushes certain 1982 pennies into legendary status is condition rarity. Because while billions of pennies were struck that year, most entered circulation immediately and suffered heavy wear. Finding any rare era variety in mint state condition is extraordinarily difficult, and finding one with full original luster, sharp strike, and no environmental damage is almost miraculous. Grading services play a crucial role here, as professionally authenticated and graded coins command exponentially higher prices than raw examples, and when a coin receives a top grade like MS67 or higher, the population reports often show only one or two known examples, instantly creating fierce competition among elite collectors, driving prices into the stratosphere. Beyond technical factors, there is also the psychology of rarity and storytelling. The 1982 Lincoln cent captures the imagination because it is relatable. It is a penny that millions of people alive today have personally handled, making the idea that one could be worth millions feel both unbelievable and tantalizingly possible. This emotional connection fuels demand and speculation, especially when headlines and auction results hint at values in the tens of millions. And while not every 1982 penny is valuable, the possibility that one could be life-changing keeps collectors searching rolls, jars, and inherited collections year after year. The idea of a $53 million penny is not just about metal and errors, it is about the convergence of history, mistake, rarity, condition, and human fascination with overlooked treasure. And as more people become aware of these possibilities, fewer untouched examples remain, further increasing scarcity. Every time someone spends a copper small date penny unknowingly, the remaining population shrinks, pushing values even higher for the survivors, and this is why experts stress careful examination of every 1982 penny, checking the date style, weighing the coin, inspecting the mint mark, and looking closely for doubling or unusual features, because the difference between a common cent and a multimillion-dollar rarity can be subtle, sometimes invisible without magnification, sometimes detectable only by weight, and sometimes hidden until professional analysis. The story of the 1982 Lincoln penny also reflects broader themes in American history, including economic pressures, industrial adaptation, and the unintended consequences of rapid change. The decision to alter the penny's composition was driven by necessity, yet it created a legacy of rare artifacts that now command astronomical values, turning a cost-saving measure into one of the most valuable numismatic chapters ever written. Collectors see these coins not just as money but as evidence of a system under strain, adapting in real time, and leaving behind errors that now tell that story better than any document. As time goes on and fewer high-grade examples remain undiscovered, the value potential continues to grow, fueled by global collector interest, investment demand, and the enduring allure of Lincoln cents. And whether the $53 million valuation represents a current market reality or a future pinnacle, it symbolizes the upper boundary of what is possible when rarity reaches mythic proportions, making the 1982 Lincoln penny not just a coin but a legend in waiting, a reminder that even the smallest denomination can hold enormous power. And as you finish watching this video, remember that history, fortune, and mystery often hide in the most ordinary places, sometimes right in your pocket. What we're talking about in this video might completely change the way you look at everyday pocket change, especially the humble penny, and today's short intro sets the stage for a fascinating journey into one specific coin that has sparked endless curiosity, debate, rumors, and collector excitement: the 1-cent 1997 D. Lincoln Penny's Liberty coin. A coin that most people would casually spend without a second thought, yet one that has been surrounded by astonishing stories of extreme value. Whispered estimates reaching as high as $675 million, and a long list of rare errors, mistakes, mint mark oddities, and striking anomalies that separate a potentially legendary example from the ordinary copper cents we see every day. So settle in, stay with me, and let's dive deep into the world of this intriguing coin and explore why a single cent dated 1997 with a small D mint mark has been discussed as something worth far more than its face value and even more than many people's lifetime earnings, starting with the background of the 1997 D. Lincoln penny itself, because understanding its origins helps explain how such dramatic possibilities even exist. The Lincoln cent has been a cornerstone of American coinage since 1909. Created to honor President Abraham Lincoln, and by 1997 the design was already deeply familiar to the public. With Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, yet behind this familiar appearance lies a massive production process involving billions of coins, high-speed minting, and human and mechanical factors that can sometimes align in unexpected ways to produce rare errors. The Denver Mint, indicated by the D mint mark on the coin, was responsible for striking an enormous quantity of cents in 1997, intended for everyday circulation, and because of that huge volume, even a tiny fraction of mistakes could result in rare pieces slipping through unnoticed, entering circulation, sitting in jars, drawers, or rolls for decades, waiting for someone with a sharp eye to recognize something unusual. And that is where the story of value truly begins, because in the coin collecting world, rarity combined with demand and condition can transform a 1-cent piece into a treasure, and when people talk about extraordinary valuations like $675 million, they are often referring not to an average 1997 D penny, but to an almost mythical perfect storm of errors, conditions, and historical significance rolled into a single specimen. So let's explore the kinds of errors and mistakes that collectors look for in this year-end mint, starting with off-center strikes, which occur when the coin blank is not properly seated in the press, resulting in part of the design missing or shifted dramatically. And while minor off-centers are relatively common and only modestly valuable, extreme off-center strikes that still show the date and mint mark can command significant premiums, especially if they are dramatic and visually striking. Then there are double die errors, which are among the most famous and sought-after mistakes in U.S. coinage, caused when the die itself receives multiple misaligned impressions during its creation, leading to doubling in the design elements, such as Lincoln's profile, the date, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust." And although true major double dies are rare for the 1997 D cent, even subtle doubling, if confirmed and authenticated, can spark intense interest among collectors who specialize in error coins, and the idea that a unique or previously undocumented double die could exist fuels speculation about extreme values, especially if such a coin were discovered in pristine condition. Then we move into the realm of planchet errors, where the metal blank itself is flawed before striking, including wrong metal planchets, such as a cent struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, which would instantly make the coin extraordinarily rare. Imagine a 1997 D Lincoln cent struck on a dime or foreign planchet, producing a weight, color, and composition anomaly that would stand out immediately to experts, and such errors have historically sold for astonishing sums, sometimes reaching 6 or 7 figures depending on rarity and condition. And when people extrapolate these historical sales into speculative future values, especially in a media-driven market, the numbers can climb into the hundreds of millions in theory. Particularly if the coin were truly one of a kind. Then there are clipped planchets, where a portion of the metal blank is missing, creating a curved or straight-edge clip, and while these are more common than some other errors, dramatic examples with multiple clips or unusually shaped missing sections can still be highly desirable, especially if combined with other errors. Then there are strike-through errors, where a foreign object such as grease, cloth, or metal shavings interfere with the strike, leaving unusual impressions or missing details on the coin. And while many strike-throughs are subtle, some are bold and unique, turning the coin into a miniature mystery that collectors love to study and own. And as we continue exploring, the mint mark itself plays a crucial role in the story of the 1997 D penny, because mint mark errors are among the most talked about possibilities, including repunched mint marks, where the D was punched more than once in slightly different positions, creating visible doubling or shadowing around the letter. And although by the 1990s mint marks were typically part of the die rather than hand-punched, anomalies and transitional quirks still occurred, and any confirmed mint mark irregularity can significantly increase a coin's desirability. Then there are missing mint marks, which would normally be associated with the Philadelphia Mint. But if a coin clearly exhibits Denver characteristics yet lacks the D, it would raise serious questions and intense scrutiny, potentially placing it among the most fascinating modern mint errors. And when collectors encounter something that seems to defy standard minting practices, the value conversation quickly escalates, especially if the coin can be authenticated by reputable grading services. Condition is another massive factor in this discussion, because even a rare error can be worth far less if the coin is heavily worn or damaged after leaving the mint. But a 1997 D Lincoln penny preserved in near perfect or perfect condition, graded at the top of the scale, with full original luster, sharp details, and no post-mint damage, could be a once-in-a-generation discovery. And when people imagine a hypothetical specimen combining multiple rare errors, flawless preservation, and a compelling backstory, that is where astronomical figures like $675 million enter the conversation. Not as everyday market reality, but as the outer edge of speculative possibility, fueled by record-breaking auction results in other areas of collecting, media headlines, and the human fascination with hidden treasure. It's also important to consider the broader context of modern coin collecting, where interest has surged thanks to online platforms, social media, and video content like this, bringing new collectors into the hobby and increasing competition for rare pieces. As more people search through rolls of pennies, jars of change, and inherited collections, the chances of a remarkable discovery increase. And with each new find, the narrative grows, reinforcing the idea that incredible value can still be hiding in plain sight. And the 1997 D Lincoln penny benefits from this excitement because it is common enough to be accessible yet old enough to have circulated widely, creating countless opportunities for unnoticed errors to survive. And beyond physical errors, there is also the realm of transitional and experimental possibilities, such as changes in metal composition or die preparation that were not widely documented. While the standard composition of cents in 1997 was copper-plated zinc, any deviation from this norm, if proven, would instantly elevate a coin into elite status, and collectors are always on the lookout for anomalies in weight, thickness, color, and sound, subtle clues that something unusual may be present. And when combined with the Lincoln cent's iconic status in American culture, these anomalies carry an emotional weight that can amplify perceived value. People love the idea that a simple penny connected to everyday life could also be a multi-million-dollar artifact, and that emotional appeal cannot be underestimated when discussing extreme valuations, because collectors are not purely rational actors, they are driven by passion, nostalgia, competition, and the thrill of the hunt. And all of these forces converge in stories about coins like the 1997 D Lincoln penny. Then there is the influence of grading and authentication services, whose opinions can make or break a coin's market value. A coin certified as genuine, rare, and in top condition by a respected service gains instant credibility and exposure, opening the door to high-profile auctions and wealthy buyers. And in the hypothetical scenario of a 1997 D penny with unprecedented errors, unique characteristics, and perfect preservation, the bidding environment could become intense, especially if multiple collectors or institutions believe they were competing for a once-in-history item. And that competitive atmosphere is where prices can soar beyond traditional expectations, sometimes reaching levels that seem unbelievable. And while $675 million represents an extreme and highly speculative figure, where everyday coins turn into extraordinary stories, and today's video is going to blow your mind because we are diving deep into one of the most talked about modern United States coins, the 1 cent 2012 Lincoln Penny Liberty coin, a coin that most people overlook, toss into jars, or spend without a second thought, yet some examples are rumored, speculated, and passionately discussed among collectors as having potential values reaching an unbelievable $984 million, not because of its face value of just 1 cent, but because of a fascinating combination of errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, striking peculiarities, metal composition curiosities, production circumstances, and collector psychology that together create a perfect storm of value, intrigue, and legend in the coin collecting world. So settle in, because this is not just about a penny, this is about how history, machinery, human error, and imagination can transform a humble Lincoln cent into one of the most talked about coins of the modern era. And to understand why the 2012 Lincoln penny even enters conversations about massive value, we first need to appreciate the context of its creation, as the Lincoln cent has been in continuous production since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. And by 2012 the penny had already undergone numerous changes in composition, design details, and minting technology, yet it still carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a symbol of unity and endurance, while the reverse featured the Union Shield design introduced in 2010, representing Lincoln's preservation of the United States. And while millions upon millions of 2012 pennies were struck at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with no mint mark indicating Philadelphia and a small d indicating Denver. What makes this year so captivating is the belief that within this sea of ordinary cents, there may exist extremely rare error coins that escaped quality control, coins that should never have entered circulation, and it is these mistakes that ignite the imagination of collectors and fuel claims of staggering valuations, because in numismatics, rarity combined with demand is everything, and an error that is unique, or nearly unique, can push values into astonishing territory, at least in theory. And when people talk about the 2012 Lincoln penny being worth $984 million, they are not talking about the average coin you find in your pocket, they are talking about hypothetical or rumored specimens that combine multiple dramatic errors into a single coin, creating what collectors sometimes call a once-in-a-lifetime piece. And one of the most discussed possibilities is the idea of a wrong planchet error, where a 2012 Lincoln cent is struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination or even a different metal altogether. And while most 2012 pennies were struck on zinc cores with a thin copper plating, the U.S. Mint has historically used various metals, and mistakes have occurred in other years where cents were struck on bronze, steel, or even foreign planchets. So the speculation goes that if a 2012 penny were struck on an extremely rare or experimental metal, perhaps one never officially approved for circulation, and if that metal had intrinsic value or historical significance, the coin could instantly become a numismatic legend, and then add to that the possibility of a dramatic double die error, where the design is doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process, resulting in noticeable doubling on Lincoln's portrait, the date, the word liberty, or the motto "I in God we trust." And while minor doubling is relatively common, a bold, clear, dramatic double die can be exceptionally rare, especially in modern coinage. And if a 2012 penny were discovered with an extreme double die combined with other errors, its uniqueness would skyrocket, and collectors place immense value on coins that clearly show the mint's mistake rather than post-mint damage. And another layer of intrigue comes from off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during striking, leaving part of the design missing and part of the blank planchet visible. And while small off-center strikes are collectible, a perfectly dramatic off-center strike that still shows the full date and mint mark can command serious attention. And imagine a 2012 Lincoln penny struck significantly off-center, on the wrong planchet, with a bold double die, and suddenly you are no longer talking about a simple error, you are talking about a convergence of anomalies that statistically should not exist together, and it is this statistical improbability that drives theoretical valuations into the stratosphere. Because collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, a mystery, a piece of minting chaos frozen in time. And then there's the topic of mint mark errors, which are especially fascinating in the context of modern coins, because mint marks are now integrated into the die rather than punched separately as they were in earlier eras, making true mint mark errors much rarer. Yet collectors speculate about possibilities such as a 2012 penny with a missing mint mark where one should exist, or a doubled mint mark, or even an incorrect mint mark, such as AD appearing where it should not. And while such errors are extremely unlikely, the very unlikelihood fuels the imagination and the legend, and in numismatics, legends matter almost as much as documented facts, because they drive interest, discussion, and demand. And another factor that contributes to the perceived value of these coins is condition, because a coin with errors is one thing, but a coin with errors preserved in pristine, uncirculated, mint state condition is another entirely. And if a hypothetical 2012 Lincoln penny error coin were found with razor-sharp details, full original luster, and no signs of wear, it would represent not just a mistake, but a perfectly preserved mistake, and collectors place immense premiums on such pieces, because they offer a clear, untouched window into the moment the error occurred. And then there is the concept of transitional errors, which occur when the mint is changing compositions, designs, or processes. And while 2012 was not officially a transitional year for the penny, rumors persist among enthusiasts about experimental alloys, test strikes, or unusual planchets being present at the mint during that period due to ongoing discussions about eliminating or changing the penny's composition. And if a 2012 cent were proven to be struck on an experimental alloy intended for testing purposes only, it would instantly become a historic artifact, not just a coin, and historic artifacts occupy a different valuation universe altogether. Especially if documentation or metallurgical analysis could confirm its uniqueness. And this is where the idea of a $984 million valuation begins to emerge, not as a realistic market price in today's auctions, but as a symbolic figure representing the ultimate convergence of rarity, history, mystery, and collector obsession, because in the high-end numismatic world, prices are not always rational. They are driven by what someone is willing to pay to own the only example of something that should not exist. And another important element is provenance, the documented history of a coin's ownership, because if a remarkable 2012 Lincoln penny error were discovered, authenticated, and then passed through the hands of famous collectors, major auction houses, or museum exhibitions, its story would grow, and with each chapter added to its provenance, its perceived value would increase, as collectors often pay premiums for coins with famous pedigrees, and the media also plays a role, because once a coin captures public attention, whether through news articles, viral videos, or social media discussions, it takes on a life of its own, and suddenly the idea of a penny worth hundreds of millions becomes part of popular culture, encouraging more people to search their change, fueling speculation, and amplifying demand. And demand is the lifeblood of value, even when the supply is hypothetical or limited to a single rumored example. And then there is the psychological aspect of treasure hunting. Because the Lincoln penny is still in circulation, meaning anyone, anywhere, could theoretically find something extraordinary in their pocket change, and that possibility, however remote, keeps people engaged, searching, and dreaming, and dreams have value, especially when they are attached to a tangible object like a coin. And it is also important to understand that when people talk about a $984 million 2012 penny, they are often combining real numismatic principles with exaggeration, storytelling, and speculative hype, but that does not diminish the underlying truth that certain era coins can be worth life-changing amounts of money, and even if a 2012 penny never sells for hundreds of millions, documented era coins from other years have sold for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even millions, proving that the concept itself is not fantasy, but an extension of known market behavior. And this is why collectors pay close attention to details such as the thickness of the coin, its weight, its magnetic properties, the sharpness of the strike, the alignment of the dies, and even microscopic features that reveal whether an error occurred during minting or after. And modern technology allows for incredibly precise analysis.